Okay, here we go. So my name is Gio, and thank you for tuning in. This is the Elemental Awakening. This is actually the first podcast, or opening episodes. There's no guest today. I'm just going to tell you a bit about myself, the intention behind this podcast, and hopefully it resonates with you and you'll listen, share, and thank you for those who have been following along for the last few years. It's been quite a journey. So some of you guys may know me from Wim Hof. I'm a Wim Hof instructor, friends with Wim. Put a bunch of videos online where I'll be jumping in ice. A lot of people seem to really like that. I've done a long fast, 55 days with no food, and I put this article on the internet that seemed to go super viral. And gained a lot of friends through that, which I'm super grateful for, from all over the world. And I'll talk a bit more about that. Maybe you know me from some of the events in Toronto that we used to run, or maybe you've been here to Elemental, the wellness studio. So wherever you're tuning in from, thank you for being here, and I really appreciate you. And hopefully, something in one of these episodes or on our channel resonates with you, and if it does, just follow your intuition. There's probably something there for you. So if something I say, or something one of the guests says, or one of the topics sparks your curiosity, look into it deeper. As I learned to trust that intuition in myself, it led me on a very interesting journey of self-discovery and growth. So the show, Elemental Awakening, it is basically, a show about things that I find interesting. The word elemental, which we named our place after, Elemental Wellness Studio. I love the word because elemental is something that's very basic yet powerful, like the elemental forces of nature: fire, wind, water. They're also very simple. They're very symbolic. They have a lot of meaning behind them. And the word awakening is the process of waking up, becoming more aware of things that were always there that you may not have been able to see before. And in my own process of awakening, I don't claim to be enlightened or anything like that, but it's just this continuous waking up process where each week, each day, as I focus more on personal growth, I become more aware. As I let go of my constructs of what reality I thought should be, and be open to possibility, it unfolds in a very beautiful way. One book that I recently read that really resonated with me was A Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And it's sort of become the motto, or the, mantra for my life these days, is to let go, to allow things to happen, and to not have expectations of the way things should or shouldn't be. It may be a sign from the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, or a test or a lesson that's unfolding for you. And, it was a very difficult concept for me to grasp as I grew up here in Vaughan, north of Toronto. Very different mindset than some other places, other parts of the world. I'd have to say, without generalizing, it's kind of materialistic, or fancy cars and nice clothing, and money would dictate your self-worth. And for many years I grew up seeing a lot of people around me that had much more money than me. We weren't poor by any means. I'd say middle, upper class. And, I went to business school. I was pretty smart in school, got honors, got into a fairly well-known business school here in Toronto, and became entrepreneurial. I realized I didn't want to become an accountant like my father wanted me to be. And very quickly, I knew I wanted to work for myself because I wanted to be more. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to be well known for being successful, and that went back to me being sort of taught, that's what was important. Always putting on this pedestal by my parents: he's so smart, this and that. And really feeling I had to live up to that in a way, which caused me to not do well in school, just do the bare minimum because I felt like it differentiated me. I went to a bunch of different schools. But anyways, so I come out of school and I have my own business. I'm in the food business. I'm selling desserts and breads and stuff like that. I'm starting to do pretty well for myself. Again, not super rich, but, kind of comfortable. And I realized pretty quickly that I was still doing the minimum to get by and live at a certain comfort level, which I think a lot of people would have been happy with, looking back, probably still would. But there was something missing for me. It was not fulfilling. It was, I'd make a new deal and it just wouldn't feel like anything. I wake up to the same thing, same frustrations, same workplace environment. And I just remember thinking to myself, there has to be something more. I remember one day I can't remember if it was a dream or a daydream. I just remember sitting at the edge of my bed and looking at my hands, and I'd imagined that was just old and wrinkled. And I'd woken up the same way out of my bed for the next 40, 50, or 60 years, doing the exact same thing, the same routine, like many people around me I'd seen had done. And I'd wasted my life. I'd done nothing that was meaningful, like nothing that had any true meaning. I didn't know what my purpose was. I knew growing up I always had these big ambitions, like I wanted to change the world or do something that was really big. But as life started slipping away from me, I just found I got into this routine, this rhythm of comfort and not pushing myself or challenging myself. And that sort of set me on a path of self-discovery. I didn't know what I wanted to do or how I was going to do it. I just knew that I had to change. And it led me down an interesting road, which started with reading. I started reading and Googling and trying to find out about spirituality. So I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read some other spiritual texts, different philosophies from different parts of the world, a lot of Eastern philosophy, Vedic philosophy. I was even reading into some Freemasonry stuff and anything I get my hands on that was giving me a different perspective than what I grew up understanding, about heaven and hell and God, and grew up Catholic. Until I sort of came across Alan Watts, and Alan Watts, and there was one book in particular, the book, and a lot of his YouTube videos started speaking to me in a way that really stood out. And what stood out the most was this non-duality, this vibration of all things, this letting go of attachment, which I was very curious about. So I started binge watching all these videos. And somewhere along the way, I remember in one of the videos, it was like on the screen there was a comment that just jumped right out at me. There was hundreds of comments. This one just was like, if you like Alan Watts, you should check out Terence McKenna. He'll really blow your mind. So okay, I've never heard of this guy. And I do a search for Terence McKenna. So up till now, I've been doing meditation. I've been playing with like remote viewing and astral projection, which I had some pretty interesting experiences with. They're hard to recreate. It felt like a lot of practice and a lot of work. And I come across Terence McKenna, and he talks about exploring South America and looking for mushrooms and finding ayahuasca in the 70s. I never heard this word before, ayahuasca. So I Googled Terence McKenna ayahuasca. I was reading Terence McKenna, and ayahuasca just opened my eyes, and there was such a pull that I felt so compelled to dive deeper, and I wanted to understand what this ayahuasca was. So I really had very little psychedelic experience at this time. Other than recreational psilocybin mushroom use in high school and shortly after, where we have a gram or two of mushrooms, drink some beers, laugh our asses off, and call it a night. And so I started realizing that there's a whole other way to use these, what they were calling medicines, and I found that interesting because I thought they were drugs. And so I end up ordering a bunch of books, and now the word ayahuasca I'm hearing it. So this is back in 2012, and there's no one I really knew in my circle that had any experience with ayahuasca. But I kept on searching, and I remember watching on Netflix this documentary, and I go through all this in my new documentary called Psyched Out. So if you're interested, check it out. It's for free online. You can check it out at our website, elementalacademy.org. There's a link on there. But anyways, so I'm checking out all this stuff, and then on Netflix, which me and my wife would watch a bunch at that time, I see DMT, the spirit molecule. So then I watched that, and it had been there for who knows months, just recommended, but obviously I didn't have the awareness to see it, and now my awareness was picking up on this. They call it reticular activating system, and it's a part of the brain that is designed to do what you tell it. So if you're thinking about ayahuasca, it's going to try and find opportunities to give you that experience. And vice versa, if you're thinking about negative experiences, because you're replaying them in your mind, you're going to seek those out. So I'm going to do another video or talk specifically about manifesting and the reticular activating system. So stay tuned for that. But anyways, so it's popping up everywhere. I watch this documentary. I realize that I can see in their eyes the people who are talking about ayahuasca. Most specifically, and this was not ayahuasca, it was DMT. You can tell they're trying their best to describe the experience, but there's something missing that you can only understand if you experience it. And that's why I quickly grew to understand my own understanding. And there's a strong pull. So I emailed the director or creator of the film, Rick Strassman. He was actually the scientist who did the studies. Or maybe he's a doctor. Anyways, he conducted the studies on DMT. And he said, there's no real DMT studies going on in the world that he knew of, but, ayahuasca had DMT in it, and you should check that out. And so I was like, okay, where can I go do it? Because I had no idea where to go. My previous thoughts were like, you can only go down to Peru in the middle of the jungle, and I wasn't ready at that point to go for that. But he did refer me to someone down in South America, so I was off to Brazil. And, it's not for everyone, psychedelics, plant medicine, especially ayahuasca, is a very deep experience. But I will say it changed my life, and since then I've seen it change many people's lives who are ready for it. What's important around it is not just like an escape or a one-time answer. It'll open many doors, and it will create many more questions, some answers, definitely more questions, and a lot deeper understanding and awareness about yourself, about the world we live in, about things you've done, about your past. And it was a huge shift for me. That was back in spring of 2013. And that really catapulted my journey. A few years later, I ended up working with a website online, became a blogger, podcaster. That's when I created the Gene Coletti Show, which is a bunch of old podcasts, probably on this channel. Interviewed like Wim Hof and Graham Hancock and Gabor Mate. So we had a bunch of amazing guests. I met so many amazing people. And meeting Wim Hof got me into breath work. Became a Wim Hof instructor, and that changed my life as well. I've seen so many transformations just through breath, accessing deeper levels of consciousness, really breaking through. And so that was a really amazing experience. And there will be some podcasts specifically on breath work here. From there, I was thinking about, many times, how do I expand this following? Because there was a lot of me that still had, I guess my ego was tied to recognition based on, growing up, wanting to be the smartest, wanting to be, acknowledged for that, and, wanting to get more followers. And, I'm just sharing this transparently, that there's this shallow need for followers at the time. And I was like, how do we get more followers? I want to get this message out to more people. And I wasn't sure if it was that I really want to get the message out to more people, or was I really just wanted to have more, be more in the spotlight. And that was an interesting experience for me to really get real with myself. And I'm sure an element of it is still wanting to connect with more people, because that's one of my highest values, is connecting with more people and helping people. And through that process, I was doing a 55-day fast. I hadn't eaten. I lost like 40 pounds, and I just wrote this vulnerable article about me passing parasites, losing all this weight, having these emotions come up and down, and just shared that article online, and it went like super viral. Within a week, I had like 5,000 new friends from all over the world. And here I am trying to think of strategies on how to like grab followers, and do it. There's all these things on social media you can do, or buy followers. And I just done it naturally, transparently, and just was myself. And I had gained 5,000 friends from all over the world. And it was just such an interesting experience about just sharing authentically, and not really worrying about what the number is. But those who resonate with you are going to connect with you. And those are really the people you want to connect with. If you have 100,000 followers that don't even care who you are, like, what's the point of that? They're not really connecting with you. They're not really caring about what you're saying, or sharing any of the experiences. But, if you just share authentically and share, what's important to you, then, the people who need to hear that will listen. So that shifted a lot of things for me. And just continued down this path. So I created a Way Within, which was another podcast. We had about 10 episodes. And around 2017, I had this crazy idea. Something was pushing me to open a center. And I've been running breathwork and, having a lot of people come to check out the breathwork classes and hang out. And it really felt good to connect with people in that way. We were doing by donation only. And something was saying, you need to open a space where people can have real community. Because this online social media thing, it was good for connecting, it's good for learning, but there was something missing, this community aspect. And And I'd been reading about, like things like the blue zones and these areas in the world where people live to 100. And even there was this book called Radical Remission. And, the common thread in a lot of these things I was reading was, having a sense of purpose was very important. But also having a strong sense of community was also equally important to living long and being happy and healthy. And I really wanted to create that. And so, I just called my real estate agent and just out of curiosity wanted to see what was available. Didn't know what I was going to do yet. And what ends up happening was there was this empty shell of a unit, which I'm sitting in right now. And the address was 999, which I took as a sign. If you're into numerology, it's interesting. 999 is a very interesting number. And, somebody just said, open this space and you know what to do. And at the same time, I had been invited to run a workshop in Hamilton as a Wim Hof workshop. And they had a float center, and my friend Jay was like, yeah, it's a great business to be in. It's challenging. He really bigged it up a lot more. There's a lot more challenges than what he had told me at the time. And I went on this sort of, I signed the lease, not knowing much about the float industry, just knowing I had to create this space. And the next 10 months were probably some of the hardest 10 months of my life, where I really had to face my fear of attachment to money, because I had put all my life savings and a line of credit on my house to open this place. And this fear of losing it all and potentially, having to sell my house, moving in with my in-laws, what would people think of me? Just had to really face my fear. And I went really to some dark places where, I was drinking wine every night just to cope with the stress. The construction workers here, they were smoking like crazy, and I started smoking because I felt like it was an escape. And that went on for like 6 months of this intense fear, waking up, not being able to sleep, worrying if this idea was even going to work. Was hard on myself, thinking I made this huge mistake. And I really lost sight of the intention was to create a space, to create community that was sustainable, that I could create a place that I loved being in every single day. That's what I really wanted. When I realized, in the old business, where I was unfulfilled, I needed something different from that, a totally different place. And in the process of creating it, I totally lost touch with the whole intention. And we finally opened, so I did the whole construction myself. I had it in one of my crazy businesses over the years. I had a renovation company. I've had many different businesses in the food business, renovations, a clothing company. One business I had was called Socks with Logs, where we had these little buttons on socks. So after you wore them, you button them together, throw them in the wash. They'd come out already washed. So anyway, all this fear comes up, and I'm wanting to quit, but I can't quit. I put myself in a situation I couldn't get out of, and I really had to surrender. This is before I read The Surrender Experiment. And there came a point in the fall, we'd been about 6 months open, we're still losing money. I'm scared. I'd quit smoking on our opening day, and I'd quit drinking pretty much on our opening day, just because I realized this is a wellness center, I need to be an example. And, I really got to see firsthand what it felt like to be highly stressed, scared, addicted to cigarettes and drinking, what the sort of people might be coming in here with, and to really have compassion and understanding for what they were going through. But I had to make that decision to change. And around September, there's a few things that I realized. One was really how the reticular activating system works, and the things you focus on is what you're going to attract. So I was attracting people who were scared, who didn't want to pay, who weren't really here for the right reasons. The way I was talking about the place, I was saying it takes time, it's a hard business, blah, blah, blah. And I had a lot of fear. And around the same time, I also did 5-MeO DMT. So I'm not recommending that that's the process to do, but one of my mentors, Sachin Patel, who's going to be on this show as well, sort of brought that to my attention, the way I was speaking about it. And then I was I watched a documentary on Donald Trump. And I'm not saying that I agree with Donald Trump or I like Donald Trump. I think he's a very interesting person that we have a lot to learn from as a society. But I remember watching him, and no matter what state his businesses were in, or what was going on, he just had this intense amount of focus and determination, and he would always be positive. He said it's going to be a great success. Things are falling apart. He goes, I'm sure it's going to be a great success. I said, okay, I can use that same amount of focus, determination, and concentration on where we're trying to go with this. So 5-MeO, hair reset, pretty pretty much squashed my fears. Ended up going to Rhythmia around a few months later. And so this huge shift was happening, and I just came back to my focus. I said, every single person that comes through here, I'm going to treat them like they're the most important person on earth. I'm going to give them the best experience. And, if I do that for the next 3 or 4 months, I was just doing all these cash flows when we'd run out of money if the worst doomsday scenario happened, which was interesting because you're focusing on that, you start attracting it. And I'm just going to attract the right people that we want here. And things shifted. We started slowly every month increasing. And now 2 years later, I'm so grateful for the entire experience, which at the time I wanted to end. And then I look back in my life, and every single time I've been in one of these experiences where it looked like it was going to end, it was dark, I was at the few rock bottoms in my life. And for many that might not seem like a rock bottom, but for me that was intense. That was just like not sleeping, fear, not wanting to go on, it was just horrible for me. And, I pulled myself out of it, and I realized that it was all in my mind. I was really just lost sight of what was important. And through that process, it also showed me how important my family was, how important people were around me, the people who were supporting me and my friends. And I realized that no matter what happens in this business, the relationships last forever. But don't allow the business or this fear to ruin your relationships, to blame others, to try to lose sight of what's important. And in that process, that's what was happening, where I blamed people for my own mistakes, and it was all me. It was all the process I had to go through for deeper understanding. And then here we are, 2 years later, and things are settled. We're still working really hard. We have an amazing team. We're opening a new center potentially in the next year, maybe 2. And I've just seen the shift in everything around me. Maybe I don't want to see it, but I realize how many people are stressed out, how many people are really struggling, and how many people are finding help in these natural ways of meditation, breath work, things like floating, sauna. I'll give you a quick view here for this back room. We have a Finnish sauna, that there's an ice bath, and down this hallway here there are 4 float tanks. We do breathwork classes in here, and it's been a great community space. We've been able to build this community of people that are supporting each other through their journeys, that are on a similar journey. And a lot of the people that come here I've interviewed on these following podcasts. And so for some people around the world that I've met as well, that I found super interesting, that have a lot of value to share. So this channel is going to have, some clips of me, some clips of other people, some specific topics that'll be shorter videos of things that I want to share. And the intention is really just to connect with people, to share information, and to create an online community and an offline community with events, retreats, and other things. So I think any topics that are specific that you'd like me to talk about, I can share my own experiences and some of my knowledge. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm a student of life, and I like to explore and travel, whether it be psychedelics, whether it be business, whether it be parenting, marketing, online. In the last year, we launched something called the Personal Development School. Me and my partner Thais, and we found that through her experience, she's able to start helping people one-on-one. So we want to create a program that can help many people. We've launched that, and the results have been amazing. And I want to create a program that combines that with psychedelic experiences as an integration program. So that's one of my new projects we're working on. And come visit me at Rhythmia. I'm there 3 times a year as of this recording. And stay tuned. Check out our website, elementalacademy.org. Like, subscribe, follow, share with your friends. Thank you guys for listening, for those of you who have lasted this long. And I'll put some links below for where you can check out Personal Development School, where you can check out elementalacademy.org. There's going to be some resources there. And our documentary, Psyched Out, and any other projects that we're working on. So I hope I didn't ramble on too much there. That's a bit about my story, where I've been the last few years. Starting up this new podcast is super exciting for me, and I hope you enjoy it. So have an amazing day. Namaste.